Hi, my name is Ann V. Brady, and I will be reading an excerpt from my book, A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service. One time I went up to Massachusetts for interviews with my father. It was a very different experience than being with my mother. I enjoyed it. We went to dinner at a restaurant, and I ordered cod. It was so dry, it sucked the moisture out of my mouth. I kept drinking water until I felt like I was swimming in water. One night, we went to visit some old friends of my parents, the Snows. Mr. and Mrs. Snow were nice and polite, yet it was awkward being around them. Throughout our visit, they talked about their latest vacation and how absolutely horrible it was. The service was poor. The hotel and weather were awful. I wondered why, if they hated it so much, they stayed as long as they did. They talked about how proud they were of their son, who was a doctor, and trashed their son, who was a florist and owned his own nursery. They constantly made snide swipes at each other all night, also. I guess the only thing that made them happy was being miserable. The day of my interview, my dad drove me to the hospital. We arrived an hour early. I suggested we go and kill time because I was too early. My dad insisted that I go in right then. We argued, and I ended up going in an hour too early rather than 15 minutes early, which to me was preferable. The interviewer was angry with me for being so early, and the interview went downhill from there. The reason she was upset was that it threw the timing of her other interviews off. I also interviewed in hospitals in New York, like the VA hospital in Brooklyn. I couldn't get an internship at any hospital. I wrote my resume and applied for jobs at hospitals and even to Revlon as a lab technician. I was at a great disadvantage because for most jobs as an MT, you need to have at least 3 to 5 years experience and or be licensed as an MT. I couldn't get licensed as an MT because I didn't have an internship, which was a requirement to take the certification test for MT. So when I didn't hear back from jobs I'd applied for, I decided to see about getting experience by joining the military. So I went to all the recruiters of the military. I looked at the Air Force first, as my dad had been in the Army Air Corps as a bombardier during World War II. They weren't interested in recruiting anyone. I looked at the Navy next. I decided not to apply to the Navy because they didn't allow women on ships. I figured, why would I want to join the Navy if I couldn't be on a ship? I contacted the Marines, but all their medical care was done by the Navy. So I contacted the Army recruiter, talked to an Army recruiter at the recruiting station. I asked what he had available in an MOS, military occupational specialty, that involves science, either in medical or research. My mom suggested that my dad and her could talk to some people that they knew in hospitals and find me a job. I told her I wanted to get a job on my own merit and not because my parents knew somebody. She told me that I would keep the job through merit and that there was nothing wrong with getting a job because I knew people. I told her no, absolutely not. I didn't want to live at home waiting for a job that might never come until I got married. I felt I was old enough to get a job, find a place of my own, and make it on my own. After talking with the recruiter, I discussed my options and where I needed to go as far as to keep looking for a job or join the military. Everyone discouraged me from joining the Army. My brothers Bob and Jim had both served. Bob served in the Army and Jim had been in the Army Active Reserves. I decided to take the ASVAB test. My GT score on ASVAB was 130. On science, I scored 110. The recruiter told me that the Army was looking for college graduates with degrees in science to go into the O1 hotel MOS, which was Biological Scientist Assistant. In order to become an ONH, you had to have a BS degree in any science field, such as biology, chemistry, microbiology. He told me that I would enter the Army as a PFC, and after graduating basic and 4 months of satisfactory performance of duties, I would be promoted automatically to Specialist 4. I asked about Officers Candidate School. He told me to pass basic first, then we could talk about OCS. Jim and Joan had another baby girl, Allison. Allison looked just like a mini version of Colleen. The pictures below were at Allison's christening. One is a picture of Laura, Tracy, and Colleen. They're all in dresses with little sweaters or coats on top. Laura's got a pink jacket on. Tracy has a white dress, a blue dress with a white jacket. And Colleen is wearing a dark blue dress. And in the next picture is the godparents and my ex-sister-in-law, Betty, is holding Allison, and with her, and she's the godmother, and with her is George, which was Joan's brother. He's wearing a jacket with a tie, and he has a white jacket on. Betty has a coat on, and Allison is wrapped up in blankets with a little hat on. And then there's a picture of Grandma Betty, and Allison. Grandma Betty is Joan's mother, and Grandma Betty has blonde hair and is wearing a blue sweater with a shirt underneath. And Allison has got a pink little dress on with a little sweater, and Betty is holding her. And they're in the patio, enclosed patio of our house at Tiana Bay in the Hampton Bays. The walls are white, and there are windows in the background. They're sitting on a couch. I invited all of my friends from the Young Adults Club to spend the weekend down at our house in Hampton Bays. I told them the only thing they needed to bring, aside from change of clothes, was a sleeping bag. They were all going to have to sleep in the living room. It was a wonderful weekend. I took them out on our boat and we started fishing. I wanted to light up and smoke, but they said no. I agreed not to smoke, but let them know that I wouldn't be able to catch a fish if I didn't smoke. After about an hour or two, I still hadn't caught a fish. They had all caught fish. Finally, they capitulated and allowed me to smoke. Within 15 minutes, I caught a fish. It freaked them out. During the summer, I tried to get a copy of my college yearbook. When I called the Adelphi University, they insisted that the yearbook wasn't out yet. I sent a request for my college transcripts and diploma to be sent to my recruiter. Once my recruiter got my college transcripts, he sent out copies of my transcripts and diploma along with my ASVAB scores to different Army medical centers and research facilities. I received a job offer from Walter Reed Army Medical Center, Ramsey. It was a job in the United States Army Institute of Dental Research, USADR, doing medical research. I was disappointed that I didn't get more job offers. I told the recruiter that I had to discuss it with my family first. He said not to take too long, as the job offer wouldn't be there for long. I discussed it with my family over the weekend and called the recruiter on Monday. I accepted the job offer. The director of USADR called me at home to interview me. We talked about what area of the lab I would be interested in working. I told him I wanted to work in microbiology. I told him what courses I had taken and about what I had done in microbiology. He told me about Walter Reed AMC. My recruiter called to tell me that the colonel was impressed with me and I had the job. My recruiter also informed me that I couldn't do my basic training at Fort Dix. They didn't have women trainees there. I was going to take my basic at Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina during July and August. Before I could enlist in the delayed entry program, I had to report for a physical given by Army doctors. I passed my physical. There was a girl who was having her physical at the same time. She failed her physical because she was under 110 pounds. In May, I enlisted in the delayed entry program. I would leave for basic on July 6, 1978. My parents were there when I enlisted in Brooklyn, New York. My dad took pictures of me getting inducted into the Army. I was the shortest one there and the only girl. My recruiter gave me a list of everything I had to buy and bring with me to basic training: white underwear, white undershirts, brown towels, etc. And that is the end of chapter 4. And I will continue again tomorrow. I hope everybody has a great Saturday, had a great Saturday, and has a great Sunday. And goodbye.